In 2016, I was in New York City at the historic Riverside Church for a conference called Gods and Guns. It was about the intersection of gun violence with faith communities of all stripes. And I got a chance to meet some of the organizers and hear Reverend Dr. William Barber speak, Senator Chris Murphy speak from Connecticut. And at one point I found myself standing next to Reverend Michael McBride, who worked within what's called PICO and is now called Faith in Action. He was a national organizer, well-known speaker, and he had done a workshop on dismantling whiteness and its connection to gun violence. And we got to talking, and I just said, thank you for speaking and sharing your wisdom. He said, oh, that's no problem. What denomination are you from? I said, oh, I'm a UU. And he goes, oh, UU! Y'all show up. We can always count on you. And it made me feel really, really good. It made me feel like I know what it means to be a UU. That we're known for doing, for showing up, for protesting, for talking, for debating, for acting, for arguing. Doing is a huge part of our faith tradition. We're part of the abolition movement, going back to some of the founding of this country. Unitarians and Universalists were involved heavily in the women's suffrage movement, in the civil rights movement, marching at Selma. We have always been doers. But as a dear mentor of mine once said, Ken, you are a human being, not a human doing. That there is another part to this thing we call life, that there is more to being a UU than doing. There is, well, being. So how are we doing at being? Here in our congregation, here as individuals, and as a wider denomination. So Unitarian Universalists have something called General Assembly every year. It's the annual meeting. This year it's in Providence, and there's always a theme. And this year's theme is called Rooted in Faith. Rooted in Faith. So that got me thinking, how rooted in faith are we? Am I? Are we simply doers who do just to do? Or is there something behind that, right? That common faith Steve was talking about. Do we live with integrity as people of faith here? Do we match what's on our insides, how we feel, with what's on our outsides, what we show to the world and how we act? Do we match our being and our doing? I think it's the biggest question for me. It's the most important question I think that we can ask as a faith community. What are the roots of my faith? What is driving me on? What is propelling me to do acts of justice in the world? Who am I at my core? And is who I show to the world. It's how people know about you, about me. Does it match what I am at my core? Folks who have struggled to express their own gender identity, to match it with their gender expression, know this. The disconnect between who you are inside and who you present to the world. And when the two do not sync up, it makes being really difficult. So is who we are on our inside reflected on our outside? Are we living with integrity as a community? Ask more questions. Are we a congregation of individuals living with integrity? Are we living with integrity as individuals within a congregation? Are we living with integrity as a congregation on the whole? Big questions. And I don't know if we'll arrive at answers here today. And that's okay. But my hope is that we will think a little bit and that you will talk to the people around you today. In coffee hour, the next time you get together for dinner, a lunch social, on a phone call with that person that you've been meaning to reconnect with. My hope is you'll talk about some of these big questions. What roots you in faith, in this faith? To both be all you can be and then to do all that you can do. So I'm going to ask you not just to think about it, but to really think about it. If you would like to close your eyes and meditate on it, think on it, reflect on it, pray on it. What roots you here? What does it mean for you to be a you? So you may have an answer. If anyone has the answer, please let me know. I think the beauty of this question and the beauty of this denomination, the beauty of our congregation, is that answer is different for everyone, or could be different for everyone. Might be similar, but maybe not identical. But the question of what is your root of faith? Another way to say it is, what is your deepest theological belief? Your deepest theological truth? Right? We have all of these answers that have been brought up. God is love. Community is sacred. We rest in the shelter of each other. I am the master of my fate and the captain of my soul. That we are all interconnected in this web of codependence and interdependence. That the universe is mysterious and unresolved. That life is suffering. And that we might escape from the suffering after many cycles. Maybe your theological truth is simply wonder. Maybe it is doing service and political activism that roots you here. I think that is probably mostly true for many of us, but here's my uncomfortable opinion that I came to when I was feeling that way. When I was feeling like I was here to do things. I do not believe now that our roots can be simply about doing. I do not believe that if we are only doers, then we are people of faith. I think if we're only doers, we are not a congregation based on religious values. I think if we are only doers with no sense of reflection or theological truth behind it, we're a nonprofit with a justice mission rather than a spiritual community that does justice work. I can hear emails clicking away. But Ken, I'm not spiritual. I'm not religious. I don't believe in this or that. And I hear you. I hear you. We talked about another definition of religion a few weeks ago. I disagree with you that you're not spiritual or religious. I think the very fact that you are a human being makes you spiritual and religious. But there's no mandate that you have to believe what I say, right? That's the beauty of this place. I can say whatever I want. You can believe it or not. So here's what roots me. Quote from Richard Rohr. The true and essential work of all religion is to help us recognize and recover the divine image in everything. It is to mirror things correctly, deeply, and fully until all things know who they are. The true and essential work of all religion is to help us recognize and recover the divine image in everything and to mirror things correctly, deeply, and fully until all things know who they are. That speaks to me so deeply. the truth that we are loved and bearers of a divine spark of creativity and joy and connection to all life. I crave that. But that doesn't mean I don't struggle. That I don't often feel like my outsides aren't really matching my insides. Sometimes I struggle with what it means to be a UU. To live with integrity in that identity. To do the right thing when no one's looking, another definition of integrity. I struggle. I struggle with the idealism of what we call a living tradition. Unitarian Universalism is a living tradition. That it's not all about books or texts written in the past. It's about what's happening here and now that is building our tradition. We have an open canon. We draw from many sources. I struggle with that idealism and the notion of what we might call spiritual tourism. It's often said that UUism is one faith with many paths, many sources, and I'm not sure now that I fully agree. That is what drew me here, but I'm not sure that that is true. The idea of spiritual tourism makes me think about us more as an interfaith denomination. If you've ever been in an interfaith space, right, it feels a little different than if you go to, say, a Baptist congregation or a Jewish synagogue or a Muslim masjid, because there's more people there. So I often think about us as interfaith. And why is because I don't think that we're many people of one faith, because I don't think we are one faith. Like, we're people of many faiths, right? So maybe we're many people of many faiths under one roof. Maybe not interfaith, maybe like interdependent faith. I don't know. I'm still struggling with that. But I think it's good to struggle. I think it's a worthwhile struggle. I think it might be the most important struggle to figure out, do my insides match my outsides, right? It's what our Muslim neighbors would call jihad, the struggle for righteousness and right living, a struggle for integrity. So, how do we be with integrity, and how do we do with integrity? As a society of faith with a living tradition that draws from many sources, that sometimes verges on spiritual tourism. So what is spiritual tourism? It's taking pieces of traditions without trying to understand or engage with the wider culture, the history, the tradition. And speaking to the white folks who are like me, we do this often with harmful consequences. We're not the only ones who do it, but it is part of a larger pattern, my friends. Taking what makes us feel comfortable with no accountability to everything else. Trying it on to see what the fad is. And I am guilty of it as well. This byproduct of white supremacy culture and colonialism. Right? Going into the culture, to the faith tradition and saying, oh, I'll take some of that and some of that. Hear me on this. I struggle with this. It's why I don't want to lead rituals like Passover or holidays like Holly. It's why I don't want to do a watered-down version of the Eucharist in communion. Right? There's no accountability to the wider part of it, even though some of those are from my practice. I don't want to be a spiritual tourist, but spiritual tourism and searching for what roots you in this faith are not the same thing. There's a difference. Hear me on this. You finding your spiritual practices from our open canon, from all of our sources, that's a good thing. But I'm asking you to do it with integrity. I'm asking you to connect with your tradition, with really struggle with it. Learn the history, the movements, the culture around it. Wrestle with how race and gender and class within those traditions all intersect. Connect with other people who practice meditation, prayer, Bible study, mitzvah, whatever it is. Seek to be in a community where we practice what's on the outside and it matches what's on the inside. where what's on the inside is not simply, ooh, shiny, and what's on the outside seems to be devoutness. I think that's a spiritual malady. So don't get me wrong, Steve brought up me preaching about Hinduism. I'm happy to preach about Hinduism and the roots of both Unitarianism and Universalism in India, because we have folks who practice that spirituality authentically here. But I do not claim to preach Hinduism. I'm happy to mirror the faiths of the people who are in the pews in front of me. Right? That's the cool part. To see your practice lifted up, that's a thrill for me. I hope it is a thrill for you. Because what roots me is the idea of knowing the thing that's behind the thing. That how big love with a capital L is. That connects us all here. Many faiths under one roof, maybe an interdependent faith community. Because I think that's my job, to mirror that love. It's my job to remind others when they forget, to show folks when they don't know how loved they are, and to let myself be shown when I forget, or when I can't see it, again and again and again. So what is the remedy to living with integrity? How do we live with integrity? How do we not be spiritual tourists? What is the solution to being an interdependent faith? Many paths in one ecclesial structure? Many folks under one roof? How do we combat white supremacy culture and the history of colonialism? I think it is simple, and I think it is not easy. I think it involves real, honest, direct communication. I think it involves real, honest, direct connection. I think it involves real, honest, direct relationship. That if we're sharing with one another, oh, you know what that means to me? It means this. You know what I heard from that? Oh, I have a different take on that. Tell me more. Could you say more about what that means to you? Having those kind of conversations that we don't get to have other places, right? You can't be on the 23 bus going downtown and be like, hey, what roots you in your faith? I mean, I guess you could, and maybe some people would be up for it, but this is the place to struggle with those questions. So what is the core of your faith? What does it mean for you to be here? What roots you? What propels you forward? And if you struggle like me, do your beliefs on the inside match with what you say and profess and do on the outside? And does there need to be some work done to make them sync up? So here's the offer. If you have a ritual that you do personally that you would like to share with everyone else, share it. Lead it. Help plan it. Do not expect me to do it just because I am the minister. For a white guy to get up and lead something not from his tradition feels really icky. But to mirror what is here, to sing each other's songs, to debate theology, to make t-shirts about what we believe, ooh, that is expressing your faith by being and doing. And my friends, I think that the beauty, I would say beauty with a capital B, is found when we share our authentic selves, what roots us with one another, that we learn and grow together as our covenant speaks to. I dig that. I vibe with that. That resonates with me. It may not for you. And that's okay. You're welcome here too. You're welcome whether you have a faith, no faith. You're welcome if you're struggling. You're welcome if you're trying to figure it out. But I am going to press us on integrity. I would like us to look for what is behind word choices, faith statements, prayer styles, for what connects us, even if we don't speak the same language. I hope that we have a spongy faith. A spongy faith is one that's based on a sponge, where it can take in some It can wring some out. It's up to you how much you want to sponge up from our open canon, doing it with integrity and accountability. You can wring it out so there's nothing. There's no mandate to be filled by everything we say here. But I do believe that our sponges are more able to do the work of cleaning, of doing justice in this world, the more spiritually full we are. So if you find yourself feeling spiritually empty, if your insides aren't matching your outsides, I hope that you will come and struggle here in the shelter of each other. I think that's the best struggling we can do. One in a living tradition that is full of words about restoration and love. Because, my friends, I think when we are authentic, when our insides match our outsides, that we can go out with joy. And if the world feels us go out with joy, sees us go out with joy, the trees of the field might, just might, clap their hands. May it be so. Amen.